What's up, YouTube? This is your boy John from the Jersey Shore, and I am back with you today to give you my review of the 1985 George Romero classic, Day of the Dead. If you're already subscribed to my channel, welcome back. It's good to see you guys again. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Go ahead, click that subscribe button right now, get that out of the way, and join the Project Ellsworth family. Day of the Dead was written and directed by the late, great George A. Romero, starring Laurie Cardille, Terry Alexander, Joseph Pilato, and Sherman Howard as Bub.
First, he created the most frightening film ever made. Then, he took his unique vision of terror one step further. Now, George A. Romero takes us out of the night, beyond the dawn, and into the darkest day of horror the world has ever known. Day of the Dead.
So Day of the Dead begins with our main character, Sarah. She's sitting in a room by herself. The room is all white, and the only thing in that room is a calendar on the wall. She slowly walks toward that calendar, and once she gets up to that calendar, a bunch of arms bust through the wall. She was dreaming. So when Sarah wakes up, she is on a helicopter. She's on there with another military dude named Miguel, the pilot and the pilot's assistant or the pilot's buddy. So they're flying around looking for survivors, but they don't find anybody. So they fly back to the helicopter pad and they land the chopper. And now they have an argument between the pilot and Sarah as to whether or not they need to fuel up the helicopter. The pilot saying leaving this helicopter with an empty tank is a bad idea, and Sarah is saying that being out here is just getting them excited. We need to get out of here now so that they can't see us anymore. And when I say they get excited when they see us, I mean zombies. There are zombies, they're completely surrounded by them, and there are thousands of them. There's a chain link fence with barbed wire at the top, completely surrounding where they had the helicopter and where they landed, but it's just not safe. This fence looks like it could give way any time now.
And then there were 12.
Burial this morning, that's why there's so many of them.
Our four characters jump on a hydraulic lift and they go down. Once they're down, they're inside of what is considered to be their safe haven. They're inside of a gigantic bunker that stretches for miles underground. And down inside of this bunker, you have a doctor, you have a couple scientists, and you have a whole bunch of military. One thing I forgot to mention, as soon as they got back, they were informed. They saw a fresh grave. They questioned it, and they were informed immediately that their leader, Sergeant Cooper, had passed away that day while they were out. So with the death of Sergeant Cooper, that leaves Captain Rhodes in charge. Captain Rhodes is a hothead with a little man complex, and he don't like nobody.
I'm in command now, and I'm telling you that you work with what you got.
Another character we have in this movie is Dr. Logan, affectionately referred to in this film by the military as Dr. Frankenstein. And he's down there performing experiments on the zombies. They have captured several zombies. They have them corralled off and separate from the rest of the people who are surviving down here. And every once in a while, he sends the military or he sends whoever that he can get his hands on over to go get him a couple more zombies so that they can be brought back to his laboratory. And he's basically treating these things as guinea pigs. He's trying to see if there's any sort of a cure that he can come up with. He's running experiments on these guys. He's ultimately just trying to figure out if he can make these things, figure out what makes these things tick.
You see, Sarah, they are us. They are the extensions of us.
And Rhodes hates him, too. He thinks that all of the pilots are a waste of his time. He thinks what Dr. Frankenstein's doing is a waste of his time. He thinks that the scientists are a big waste of his time. Ultimately, he just thinks that everybody is a waste of his time, and all they really have is time. I don't know what this guy's problem is. Rhodes is portrayed by Joseph Pilato, and Pilato does a really good job of being a jerk in this movie. It don't take you long to start hating that dude.
Sit down, or so help me God, I'll have you shot.
Anyway, Frankenstein requests a couple more guinea pigs for him to experiment on. So Miguel, which is the dude who was up on the helicopter, the military guy, Miguel, Sarah, and a couple of the other military gentlemen go over there. One's name is Steele and one's name is Rickles. They go over to the corral to get a couple zombies out for Dr. Frankenstein. And the way that they do that is they have a pole with a strap on the end of it. They hook the zombies by the head. They pull them in a little box. A door shuts, and on the other side, a door opens, and they can lead them out with this pole. Well, Miguel is in the middle of like a nervous breakdown from stress, from what's going on, ultimately from what the world is that they live in now. Everything is overrun by zombies, and this guy is about to freak out. So he's got a hold of this pole with a zombie on the end of it, and he's trying to corral this zombie over to get her under control. It's a woman. He's trying to get her under control and drops the pole. This zombie gets away and almost gets a hold of one of the other military dudes. He almost gets a hold of a guy named Rickles. Sarah picks up the pole. The zombie doesn't get Rickles, but the zombie almost gets Rickles. Now Steele grabs a hold of Miguel. Steele is the large military guy, and he seems to be pretty much second in charge to Rhodes. He grabs a hold of Miguel, and he's leaning Miguel over top of the corral, and there's a zombie down there grabbing a hold of his dog tags. It's pretty ugly. He roughs Miguel up a little bit and just throws him off the top of this thing. So after that whole situation has calmed down a bit, you see Sarah and Miguel back in Sarah and Miguel's room, and she's trying to convince him to take a sedative. She's loading up a syringe. She's getting ready to give him a shot. He gets pissed. He says he doesn't want it. He actually walks up and slaps her, and then eventually, after a couple minutes of banter, they hug. They embrace. And while they're hugging, she actually injects him in the shoulder with this needle to knock him out for a little while. And now it's time to meet Dr. Frankenstein's star pupil, Bub. Bub is a zombie, but he seems to be operating on, at higher function. He doesn't speak. He is a zombie, but he seems to have more of a better recall of what life was before he was a zombie. He sees the military guys walk into the room, and he actually salutes them. He seems to remember music. There's one scene in the movie, pretty legendary scene actually, where Dr. Frankenstein has a headset put on him, headphones put on him, and is showing him how to use his finger to press the play button on an old cassette player. He learns how to do that. He's listening to music. He's kind of freaking out, but he seems like he's enjoying it. So he takes a clip out of a gun, and he lets Bub have the gun. Bub picks up the gun and actually points the gun at Rhodes and Steele and Rickles in this room. And right away, you can tell that Rhodes just does not like this zombie very much. And Rhodes is an asshole. He probably wouldn't mind that too much either. And like I said a little while ago, Rhodes don't like Frankenstein either. He wouldn't mind shooting Frankenstein. He just thinks Frankenstein is a moron and he's just a waste of his time. And I'm sure he doesn't like it very much that Frankenstein talks to him like he has no authority and like he's a blithering idiot. Rhodes is supposed to be the leader here, and Frankenstein obviously has no respect for his authority. Alright, so now it's time to go back to the corral. Frankenstein wants a couple more guinea pigs. It's time to do a little bit more experimenting. Alright, so it's corral time again. Frankenstein wants a couple more guinea pigs, so Miguel and Sarah and Steele and Rickles and everybody else goes back over to the corral. Miguel's got another zombie on the end of the pole, got the wrapped around its neck, pulls it out of the corral, and this time it is not Miguel's fault. The strap breaks. This time Miguel ain't so lucky. That zombie does kill one of the other military dudes, and the guy that he bites has a machine gun in his hand. So when he gets bit, he starts bleeding out, and as he's dying, he pulls the trigger, and he shoots another military dude. So now Miguel is being held responsible for the death of two of these military guys. All this, Miguel gets bit himself. He gets bit right on the forearm. He takes off running like a bat out of hell. He's running around down here in this little silo, and he comes up to the trailer where the pilot and his buddy are staying. The pilot and his buddy are the smart ones of the group. They're not staying inside of that bunker with Rhodes and his flunkies. So after Miguel makes his way to this trailer, these two guys jump out of the trailer. Sarah runs up behind him and hits him in the head with a rock. He falls on the ground. He's knocked out. she pulls the machete off of the pilot. He's got a machete on his belt and chops his arm off. She's trying to chop his arm off above where he was bitten in hopes that he won't turn into a zombie. She has no idea whether this is going to work or not, but she figures, what the hell, let's give it a shot. Now they've chopped off Miguel's arm. They grabbed the torch and they burned it. They cauterized it so that it would stop the bleeding and stop, hopefully stop infection. And Rhodes, Steele, and Rickles finally catch up to him. They catch up to him. They take their weapons. They tell Sarah that you got to stay out here with them. So now Sarah and Miguel are staying outside with the pilot in his camper. So later that night, after Miguel is asleep, Sarah goes back inside to the compound to get some medicine and some supplies. She goes into the laboratory where Dr. Frankenstein is, but Dr. Frankenstein does not know that she's there. And she pulls back a towel that's on the table, and she realizes that Dr. Frankenstein has the severed head of one of the guys that was killed earlier in the incident where Miguel had the strap break.
Take that off. 5 minutes, mother. Just 5 minutes.
They see that. Then they see another zombie lying on the table. This zombie's guts are falling out onto the floor. He's got these zombies and he's doing experiments on them, but he also is experimenting on the military guys that have died. Unfortunately, Rhodes and Steele and Rickles walk up behind Sarah and the other guy. The other dude that's there is another scientist that's in the movie. The military, Rhodes, Steele, like I said, Rhodes, Steele, and Rickles walk up behind Sarah, and they're looking through a window at Dr. Frankenstein, wanting to know what in the world is that guy doing in that room. Frankenstein is in that room with Bub. He's trying to teach him a few new tricks, and as a reward, he walks over and puts a bucket on the table in front of Bub. Bub reaches into that bucket and starts eating. It's very obvious that it is human flesh, and what we find out next is that Dr. Frankenstein is now rewarding Bub with the bodies of the military dudes that were killed earlier. How do you think Rhodes is going to feel about that?
Those are my men in there!
And that is it. I am not saying another word about Day of the Dead. If you have not seen this movie yet, I will not be the one that ruins this one for you. The special effects in Day of the Dead are the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about this movie. I've been watching this movie. I've seen this movie a countless amount of times. I've watched this movie since it came out. This is one of those movies that as a kid I went into a video store and saw this on the board and thought it looked really cool, so I decided to rent it. This was definitely the first George Romero movie that I ever saw, and still to this day, this is my favorite George Romero movie that I ever saw. So back to what I was saying. The effects in this movie were done by Tom Savini, and his assistant on this movie was Greg Nicotero. I'm sure if you guys are horror fans and you're big fans of this genre, you should probably know who those two guys are by now. Tom Savini is absolutely legendary. He's probably the most famous special effects artist in the history of horror movies. And he actually even has a special effects school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Greg Nicotero on this film was his assistant. Greg Nicotero is now the special effects, heads up all the special effects and does a lot of the writing and directing on The Walking Dead. The gore in this movie is just next level. I don't think that any of the movies that Romero ever directed, wrote had the effects in it that this movie did. Night of the Living Dead, the gore, and that was minimal, A, it was minimal, and B, it was in black and white, so you really couldn't see a whole lot. In Dawn of the Dead, there was a significant amount of gore, and there was a significant amount of blood. Savini also worked on that movie. Savini's actually in that movie. But this one seems to be like the creme de la creme of gore as far as George Romero movies go. I watched an interview with George Romero, and he was actually specifically, about that type of thing. He was talking about there are the die-hard fans of Return of the Living Dead because it was the beginning. Then you have the crowd who likes to party when they watch Dawn of the Dead. That's just like a get-together party type of film. And then he referred to the fans of Day of the Dead as trolls. He's like, then you got the trolls who really like the nasty, gritty, disgusting feel of Day of the Dead. So I guess I'm a troll. And then there's Bub. I think that it's safe to say that Bub is probably the most widely recognizable zombie in the entire horror genre. Everybody who is a horror movie fan and has been for a long time knows exactly who Bub is. And I would also probably go as far as to say, even if you've never seen Day of the Dead, chances are you've seen the image of Bub. Not only is Day of the Dead my favorite George Romero movie, Day of the Dead is inside of my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time, and it is without a doubt my favorite zombie movie that has ever been made. There were several movies made in George Romero's Dead universe. There were a couple made before this one, and there were a couple made after this one, but in my opinion, none have ever been as good as this one was. Day of the Dead, folks. The greatest zombie movie ever made. Of course, that's just my opinion. All right, folks, that is going to do it for my review of the 1985 George Romero classic film, Day of the Dead. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you really like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I would love for you to go on this journey with me. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, have a kick-ass day, and thank you for watching.